Hey guys, so this lesson is for Tuesday, January 28th, if we have class, and if not, it's for Wednesday, January 29th. So this lesson is going to be a continuation of the lesson that we already started about imperialism in Africa and Asia. So basically, I'm going to review what we talked about in class today. Then I'm going to tell you about a scenario that I want you to think about. And then finally, you're going to think through the scenario for yourself and answer some questions. So let's just jump in. So, as a reminder, imperialism is a political philosophy that applied in Europe and North America. Countries from these continents conquered territory in Africa and Asia in order to exploit people and land on these continents for natural resources. These natural resources, which we also call raw materials, were needed to fuel the industrial economies of countries in Europe and North America. Also, don't forget that Japan also practiced imperialism. They're the only country outside of Europe and North America that did. So a second major reason, aside from the raw materials, was because of this idea called the white man's burden. So this philosophy was popularized in this poem that was written by Rudyard Kipling, who was famous for writing The Jungle Book, which later became a Disney film. So according to this philosophy, Europeans and Americans had a duty to civilize, quote unquote, Africans and folks in Asia. This quote unquote civilizing process included converting Africans and Asian folks to Christianity and persuading them to adopt other European cultural traits like language, dress, and westernized educations. So here is the very beginning of the poem that was written by Rudyard Kipling, The White Man's Burden. So on the left side, we have the original part of the original text, and on the right side, I added whether as underlined text or as italicized text, so that's the text that looks kind of slanted to the side, my own annotation so that you can understand better what it means. So I'm going to read the part on the left first, and then I'm going to read the part on the right. So on the left it says, "Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed, go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on fluttered folk and wild, your new-caught sullen peoples, half devil and half child." So then I'm going to read what's on the right side, which I think is easier to understand. So I changed some words and added some information. So take up the white man's burden, send out the best of your children, force your sons to live in the colonies, to serve the natives' need or to help the native people, to serve in heavy harness, so that means to for the children of Europeans to essentially treat themselves like plow horses, right? So that would be like a horse whose job it is to pull a plow behind himself. So in other words, this is just a metaphor to say oh, we're going to send our children to Africa and Asia because they have a hard job to do there, which of course is to quote unquote civilize the native people. So when he says fluttered folk and wild, he's referring to native Africans and folks from Asia. Your new-caught sullen peoples, right? So again, they've just been conquered. That's what new-caught means. And then sullen, of course, means that they're not super happy about being conquered. And why would they be? Half devil and half child. So that means that the native people in Africa and Asia are not Christian, which is the half devil part. And they weren't considered civilized by European standards, which is the half-child part. So Europeans might have considered Africans and Asian folks to be kind of like children in that they didn't have the same sort of sophisticated, as the Europeans would see it, culture that the Europeans and the Americans had. So this is the first part of the poem. It actually goes on for about 7 more verses. It's kind of long. We're not going to read the rest of it right now, although we will look at it more in class tomorrow. So I just want you to be familiar with the poem and ready to discuss it in class tomorrow. So it's right here. Read back over it on your own if you like. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So now we're going to do this thought experiment. So some of you heard part of this in class today. But for everyone else, I just want you to follow along and understand what I'm talking about with this thought experiment, and then you're going to answer questions. So just to be aware, the whole point of this thought experiment is to share how you would feel if you were in a situation like this. So just keep that in mind as we go through it. So, an alien race encounters the Earth and offers to share their technology with humans. One piece of technology that the aliens offered to share was technology for making food. The aliens noticed that a lot of humans on Earth were starving, and if we used the aliens' technology, there would be a limitless amount of food. Humans happily accept this new technology, but there's a condition. On the aliens' home planet, to avoid health problems relating to overeating, people are only allowed to eat 1,900 calories a day. So just for your own reference, that is around the amount that the Food and Drug Administration recommends that an adult eat in a day. The aliens will only give humans their food technology if humans agree to this condition. The humans accept, and the aliens give the food technology to Earth. Soon there's no hunger or starvation. However, not long after the new technology is used, one human eats 3,000 calories in one day. The aliens shoot this human on the spot, reminding humans that they agreed to only eat 1,900 calories and that execution is the price paid for overeating. After sharing their technology, the aliens speak to the humans again. The aliens notice that the Earth has many apples. The aliens actually use apples back on their home planet as an energy source. Since the aliens solved Earth's food issues, the aliens feel like, well, humans, why don't you grow some apples for us? Because you don't really need to eat them anymore. You don't have to grow food, so grow apples, and we'll take them back home with us and use them for energy. So humans now have this new technology that ends hunger, but they must, that ends hunger, but they must abide by a strict diet. Also, many humans must become apple farmers to meet the aliens' energy needs. So here are the questions that I want you to answer. Would you want to live in this society? Why or why not? Is giving up your freedom to decide what and how much to eat worth ending starvation? Who's benefiting in this situation? And how is this relatable? Excuse the typo there. How is this relatable to imperialism and the white man's burden? So go ahead and answer these 4 questions. I'm telling you that you should probably write, a paragraph or so per question. This shouldn't be 1 or 2 lines. So answer the questions, be ready to discuss in class tomorrow, and have a great night.